It was completely unexpected. I had just returned home from a hard day at work, expecting to find my wife Nancy in the kitchen preparing dinner. Nancy worked but came home at 5, and I didn't come home until 6 or so. She cooked the food, we ate, talked about our day, watched TV, and then went to bed, where, most nights, anyway, we made love. I walked into the apartment to find Nancy sitting on the couch with John Marcus. John was a lawyer at the firm of Dewey, Cheatham and Howe, where Nancy worked as a secretary. They held hands. Before I could ask what the hell was going on, Nancy said, "Sit down, Roy. We need to talk." "What about, Nancy? And why are you holding hands with your boss?" "This is what we need to talk about, Roy. Please sit down. I'd better stand." She looked at John. He nodded his head, and Nancy said, "It's not easy to say this, but the fact is that John and I fell in love, and I'm going to divorce you and marry John. John took care of all the paperwork, and all you have to do is sign it. I don't ask for anything, just my clothes, jewelry, and everything. Just sign, and it'll be over in 90 days. John took some papers that were lying next to him on the sofa, stood up and walked over to me, saying, "Roy Dalton, you have..." And that was all he managed to do before my right foot hit him right in the crotch. He dropped the papers he was holding in his hands and bent at the waist, reached for the bruise with his hands, leaned over, and I punched him in the jaw as hard as I could. He fell to the floor. "You pathetic piece of shit," I yelled, kicking him again. "It doesn't matter if she came for you or you followed her. You knew she was married." While all this was happening, Nancy sat in shock, too stunned to even scream. I left John on the floor, crying and holding his crotch, and pulled Nancy off the couch and dragged her into the bedroom. She tried to run away from me with tears. "Let me go! Let me go, damn you!" I pushed her face down on the bed, burying her face in the pillow, and sat on her back, tearing the sheet. Using a torn sheet, I tied up Nancy and gagged her, and then went into the living room, grabbed John by the collar and dragged him into the bedroom, threw him on the bed, tied him up, and gagged him too. I stood and looked at them, and then started laughing. "How about this? Lovers are in bed together, and the husband stands and watches. Is this perversion or what?" While they lay there watching, I cleared the dresser and closet of my things and packed them away. I took a photo of the lovebirds with my cell phone and then said, "You're not going anywhere, do you hear?" I left them, and then hurriedly took everything I wanted and could from the apartment and loaded it all into my truck. I'll come back later for more important things. I went back to the bedroom, grabbed all the things I had packed and took them to the truck. Returning to the apartment, I emptied Nancy's purse, taking all her money and credit cards, and then made a final visit to the bedroom. I stood there and watched them struggle to free themselves. After a minute or so, I said, "When I get to the city limit sign, I'll call someone to save you. If I'm lucky, I'll never see any of you again. On the other hand, maybe I'll wait until I'm 1,000 miles away to call. Once you are free, you will only have to wait a year before you can divorce me for leaving you. Take care of yourself now, do you hear? Snuggle up to him and enjoy the time spent in your arms." Then I left and left them there. As I walked down the road, I asked myself why I was such a cruel asshole. I understood why. If Nancy came to me and told me she wanted a divorce because she fell in love with another man, I wouldn't like it. But I would accept the fact that she didn't want to be with me. I could ask what I did to push her away, or what she thought I was lacking. But I would just let her go. But confronting me in my own home with her lover holding her hand and saying straight to my face, "Here are the papers, sign them," was too brazen for me to let go. I expected dinner to be ready for me when I got home, and as this was not the case, I went to the Village Inn and had dinner. As I ate my dinner, I wondered why, if she was in love with her boss, she had sex with me until today's encounter in our living room. I will probably never know the answer to this question. I finished my apple pie, and then called Julie, Nancy's sister. I told her that I had left her sister and her lover tied up in the bedroom of our apartment, and then I hung up before she could ask me any questions. I hope my 1,000 miles away will make them think I'm leaving town and they won't bother looking. In fact, I was just planning to move to the other side of town. I left the restaurant and checked into the Quality Inn, then called my boss at home. I explained the situation, agreed to take the next 2 days off, and then asked him to tell Nancy if she called him that. I showed up for work and quit without notice, muttered something about Florida, and left. He said he would do it and then said, "You do realize that if you stay here, she will eventually see you somewhere, or someone who knows you might mention that they saw you, right?" "Yes, but I'm only doing this to stall for time. It might only take a day or two, but I'll take what I can get." I went to the bank first thing in the morning, only to find out that Nancy had lied to me. All she needed were her clothes, personal items, and all. I discovered that Nancy had been there the day before and had withdrawn half of the checking and savings accounts. I checked the safe deposit box and found that she had apparently forgotten about it. There were 6 certificates of deposit. Each cost $12,000. They were supposed to be the down payment on the house. We each put 10% of our net pay into savings, and then when we saved $12,000, we bought a certificate. But what really should have pissed her off was the box that was also in the cell. There was jewelry in the box. They belonged to her great-great-grandmother and were passed down through generations, and Nancy received them when her mother died of cancer. They were valued at $82,000. Jewelry was a bone of contention between Nancy and her sister Julie. Julie always claimed that she should have gotten half, and Nancy always claimed that it was hers since it was the firstborn, and would in turn go to her future daughter. Nancy must be very, very angry when she remembers the box and opens it and finds it empty. I took the jewelry before Nancy discovered it was missing, and after letting her be a little nervous, I would give the jewelry to Julie afterwards. In the morning, I rented an SUV and waited until Nancy left for work, then popped into the apartment to pick up the heavy items I needed. My key didn't work, and I cursed myself for not waiting until all the hardware stores closed before calling Julie. But my name was on the lease, and I had not been served with a restraining order, at least not yet, so I had a right to be in the home. It wasn't that difficult to get inside. I would have to pay the property management company, whatever it cost, to fix or replace the door, but that was the least of my problems at the time. I took everything I wanted out of the house in 45 minutes and hid it in storage an hour later. While at the apartment, I used the phone to cancel our joint credit cards, called Megan at the property management company about the door, and told her I would call back in a couple of days and arrange payment. I had known Megan for years, so when she asked what happened, I told her the whole story. She laughed and said, "Really? Did you leave them in bed together? It frees you up for me." "What about Mike?" "He pulled the same shit Nancy did. Contacted some slut he was working with and told me he loved her more than me. Do you have my home number? When you feel ready, don't be afraid to call." "Thank you, Meg. We'll talk to you later." I went to the library and looked through half a dozen books. My plan was to hide and do nothing but work during the day and read in the evening. If I'm barely out and about, there's little chance Nancy will notice me looking for me. I couldn't afford to stay in a motel for too long, so I called Megan and she pointed me to an apartment complex on the other side of town. She took care of me and called the apartment manager. I knew I was taking a risk by staying in the city. In some of my conversations with Nancy, when she was talking about her work and the people she worked with, she mentioned that Marcus was approaching a partnership, and I was betting that Marcus would want to avoid the scandal that could happen if he put forward assault charges against me. First, it could cost him the partnership he was hoping for because it would reveal that he was involved with a married employee. I'm sure he wouldn't want the partners in his law firm to come down on him because of the potential negative publicity. I also thought he would talk Nancy out of filing spousal abuse charges for the same reason. Within 3 days, I moved into my new apartment. When I got to work, my boss told me that Nancy called and that he told her about my move to Florida. He said she exclaimed, "Damn!" and hung up. I couldn't help laughing when I heard this. Around 11, I called Megan and asked how much I owed on the door, but it turned out that Nancy took care of it. Then Megan asked me where we were going on our first date. I explained my plan for Nancy, and Megan laughed and said I was evil. Then she said, "You can come over to my place for dinner. and we can talk about old times. This way you won't glow, and she won't have the slightest chance of seeing you. At what time? Say, at 6? As I drove to see Megan, I thought about her and how long I've known her. We dated off and on throughout high school and almost reached the stage of being in a permanent relationship. Before we could move to the next level, her father got promoted and the family moved. I didn't know she was back in town until the day I walked into the manager's office to sign the lease. But by then, I was already married to Nancy. I showed up at her apartment on time, sat down at the kitchen table, and we talked while she finished cooking dinner. She told me all about her move to Colorado when her dad got promoted and how she hoped she could someday move back there. I asked her why she didn't just stay there if that's what she wanted. She told me that her father died in a work accident and her mother returned here. She was a loser and she needed me, so I came back with her. She's doing better now, but I can't afford to go to Colorado yet. I'm saving money, so maybe someday I'll be able to take this step. She wanted full information about Nancy, and I told her. She laughed and said that I should have photographed them, framed them, and hung them on the wall with the caption, "Doves resting after a hard day." I laughed and told her I took a photo of it on my cell phone right before I left. She looked and laughed out loud. We had a nice time, and I offered to return the favor and invite her to dinner with me the next night. She said she would be happy to come. The next night, I had dinner with Megan, and after eating, we sat on the couch and watched a movie. About halfway through the movie, I discovered that we were holding hands, and I have no idea how or even when it happened. I looked at her and found that she was looking at me. Have you ever wondered how things would have turned out for us if my father hadn't moved us to Colorado? A day after I saw you, when I came to sign the lease agreement for our apartment. Do you want to know if anything has been preserved? I'd love to, but not before I get rid of Nancy. Why wait? If you're done with her, you're done with her. Maybe, but I'm still married. Vows and all that stuff. But she broke her vows and freed you. Good idea, but I'm not in that mood. Once I am officially served, I sign the papers and send them back. I will consider myself free from my vows. But it won't be easy. I loved that stupid bitch and thought she loved me. Although some people can turn off love as easily as turning off a light, I'm not like that. It will take me a little time to recover from Nancy. I have 8 years left to bury what I thought were pretty good years. It won't be easy for me. I think the first step is to get all the legal issues out of the way. How long will it take? The paperwork is already done, so I guess all I have to do is make myself available so I can be served. I think the easiest way would be to just go to the office where she works, but I don't want to do that, although I'm looking forward to it. And there's really nowhere to rush. We need to get to know each other again. 12 years have passed since we broke up, and now we are different people, and there's a pretty big elephant in the room. I was head over heels in love with Nancy and thought we had a great marriage until she ambushed me that night with her boss. Do you want to know what the trick is? The night before she ambushed me, we made love 3 times. 3 times, and she did it knowing what she was going to do to me the next day. She even kissed me goodbye and wished me a good day as I left for work that morning. Enough about this. I decided I wasn't going to hide from Nancy. Let her find me. So what would you like to do on our first date? Depends on when. Dinner and dancing if it's on the weekend. Dinner and a movie if it's midweek. Okay, how about dinner and a movie on Wednesday, and dinner and dancing on Saturday? I'm fine with that. But what are we going to do on Friday? We can talk about this on Wednesday. No, let's get this out of the way right now. How about dinner at my place on Friday? Isn't it too much for me to put myself through such a test in such a short period of time? If everything goes my way, I'll still take all your time. Then we will meet on Friday. Wednesday's date went well, and I got a nice kiss when I drove Megan home at the end of the date. Since I changed my mind about hiding from Nancy, I showed up at the bowling alley on Thursday. As luck would have it, that Thursday night, my team met with a team that included Nancy's colleague. I asked Melissa if she had any idea how long Nancy's affair with her boss lasted, and I could see in her face that she knew, but she said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." "You don't have to hide it, Melissa. Nancy and Marcus have already amazed me with this. Nancy wants to get a divorce so she can marry him. I'm just curious how long she's been fooling me. I never had a clue until she hit me with it. Maybe 8 months. We all think she's crazy for giving up on you for that dirty bag. Is it true that you kicked him in the crotch?" I just smiled, but didn't answer. Melissa asked if I was going to fight the divorce, and I told her no. Why should I fight to keep someone who doesn't want me? When this is all over, is there a chance that I could be on the list when you go searching again? I'll keep you in mind, but I'm afraid it takes time, and I can't imagine a beauty like you will still be around when the dust finally settles. They say that good things are worth waiting for. Do you think you could work with Nancy if we were to meet? I bet it would be fun to watch her eat her heart out. It won't take her too long to find out what a piece of shit Marcus is, and that she definitely screwed up by leaving you for someone like him. I hope you're right. I'd love to see this. It was a good evening as far as I was concerned. The team won 2 of 3 games, and I hit the jackpot with 217 in the second game, and my ego was boosted by a real hottie taking an interest in me. My Friday date with Megan went well. Saturday, not so good. After dinner at Duke's Steakhouse, we went to Buckskins for a dance. Buckskins was a country western venue where the band performed on the weekends. The band that night was Carlos Washington, and I was on the dance floor doing the cowboy cha-cha with Megan when Julie Myers, Nancy's sister, came in with her current boyfriend and another guy I didn't know, and they took the table next to ours. That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that as soon as they sat down, Nancy joined them. I've already decided not to hide the fact that I'm in town, but the table next to me and my date. And where was John? Has she already left him? I assumed that the unknown guy was her escort for the evening. I warned Megan about what we were about to face, and she laughed and said, "Oh my God, this evening will be remembered." The music ended, and we headed to our table. Nancy had her back to us, but Julie was facing us, and I saw the surprise on her face as we walked up to our table and sat down. Apparently, she decided not to tell Nancy about this, since Nancy never turned around. I had already decided to pay our bill and leave. The next tune was a waltz, and Julie and the other 3 stood up with her to go out onto the dance floor, and that's when Nancy saw me. I saw the shocked disbelief on her face, but her dance partner took her hand and led her to the dance floor. She didn't take her eyes off me while she danced. The song ended, and the band announced that they were going to take a break. All 4 of them returned to their table, and then Nancy decided to get angry with me. "Who is your friend, Roy?" she said with strong sarcasm on the word friend. "You, of course, remember Megan from the leasing office." She looked at Megan and asked, "Do you often date married men?" Megan laughed at her and said, "Only with those who are thrown away by stupid wives." Nancy got an annoyed look on her face at this answer, and then she said to me, "Why are you here, Roy? I thought you left town." "I'm here to drink and dance. Isn't that what people usually come here for? And obviously I'm here, otherwise you wouldn't be able to talk to me." "Where do you live?" "None of your damn business." "Are you still working for Stan?" "Why don't you go back to your group, Nan? I would like to spend some time with my partner." "Damn it, Roy. You know I don't like being called Nan." "Cool shit, Nan. After the crap you and your creepy boss pulled, I don't care what you like or don't like. Does John know you're seeing another man tonight? Maybe I should write him a few lines and let him know. This is wrong. I came here for a drink or two with Julie and Randy. I didn't know that Art would be with them." I called out to the next table. "Hey, Julie, is this Art's date with Nancy?" "I'm not going to get involved in this, Roy. The fact that Julie doesn't support your story tells me everything I need to know." "Damn it, Roy, I'm not crazy." At this point, Megan said, "If you don't want to participate in a hair-pulling contest with me, you need to leave me and my boyfriend. Now." Nancy gave us an angry look and returned to her seat. Megan smiled at me and said, I haven't had this much fun in a long time. The band came back and we went back to the dance floor and did 2 dances, and when we sat down at the table, Julie and her band were gone. Megan asked, "Are you really thinking about telling her lawyer boyfriend about her and that artist guy?" "No. If she cheats on him, he deserves it, since he himself is a cheater. I mean, he did cheat, right? If, like she said, they just happened to be here, I'll let her think and sweat that someday I'll just tell him about it to cause friction between them. Maybe get him thinking about that old, once a cheater, always a cheater." "You really have a deliciously evil mind, don't you?" I just smiled. I received a very hot kiss when I took her home. As we drove, I wondered if something lasting could work out with Megan. We did have something in high school, but was it more than just puppy love? The next day I called Julie and asked her to meet me at Bad's after I got off work. "I told you I don't want to get involved, Roy." "I don't need you to interfere, Julie. I need to talk to you about something other than my current relationship with your sister." "Okay, but no talk about Nancy and what you two are going through, or I'll get up and leave." Accepted. I got to Bud's before Julie, and decided the best way to handle the situation was to just hand her the jewelry box and leave. This way I won't have to mention Nancy and cause Julie to run away. Julie came in, looked around, saw me, and came over to join me. Knowing her usual drink, I already put it on the table. She sat up, noticed the drink, took it, took a sip, and then said, "Okay, Roy, what's the matter?" I placed the box on the table in front of her. "What is this?" "Open it." She took another sip and opened the box. I saw the look on her face when she realized what was in front of her. She reached out her hand, took out a diamond necklace, and looking at it said, "My mother let me wear it when I played dress-up as a child." "Where did you find him?" I explained how I got it and said, "I know you always felt like you should get half when your mom died. Now you have it all. What you do is up to you. You can keep half of it for yourself and give the other half to your sister, or you can keep it all for yourself. You may or may not tell your sister. When she finally remembers the safe and finds it empty, she will come to me and I will tell her that I pawned the jewelry." "Why didn't you pawn them?" "I couldn't do it, Julie. They're family heirlooms, and even pawning them to spite Nancy would be the same as stealing them from you, and you've always been kind to me, so I just couldn't do that. To tell you the truth, Roy, I always regretted that I didn't get to you before Nancy." She put the necklace back and said, "You'll never know how much I appreciate it, Roy. Stay in touch, Roy." And then she left. The very next day, Nancy showed up where I was working. She came up to me and said, "Where are my jewelry? How did you know I was here?" "When I found out that you didn't leave town, I thought that you would be here." "Where is my jewelry?" "I got rid of them." "Did you get rid of them?" "They were mine, Roy. You had no right to take them." "Of course I did it. The money I got when I pawned it covered the money you withdrew from our accounts." "Money from our accounts? Wait, have you pawned the jewelry?" To her. "Damn you, Roy. You had no right. You lied to me. You told me that all you want from our marriage are your personal things, like clothes, jewelry, and everything. No mention of money. Horse shit, Roy. You should have known without me saying that I should get my share of the money. You never know what I should have known, Nancy. For example, that my wife was a cheater, a traitor. But I didn't know that. And you didn't just take your share. At most, you were entitled to half, but you took more than half. I didn't do it. There were $15,600.12, and you took $7,850. That's $49.94 more than half. I pawned your jewelry for that $49.94, and that makes us even. $49.94? My God, Roy, these jewels are worth over $60,000. What are you saying? Well, my loss. I'll tell you what. The receipt says you have 60 days to buy it back. In fact, there are only 51 days left, but I will make a deal with you. I'll sell you a pawn shop receipt for $10,000. Where will I get so much money? Ask your new man. Maybe he'll give it to you. How about I just call the police and tell them you stole my jewelry? Go for it. Do you have anything to indicate there was any jewelry in the safe? Do you even have documents showing that you had jewelry? Just get the hell out of here, Nancy. This is not the end, Roy. Get the hell out of here or I'll call the police. I'll turn you in for attacking me and John. Do that, and I'll sue John for alienation of affection and the law firm for not following its employment policies and allowing the relationship between the boss, John, and someone he controls to develop involving you. Do you think John will ever become a partner in this? You better just get out of here, Nancy, and don't make me any more angry than you already are. And remember, if you had told me directly that you didn't love me anymore, it would have hurt me. But I would have just let you go, and we could have avoided all this drama. Now go. She took one look at me and left. Did I believe that she would lag behind? Of course not. I knew Nancy better than she thought, and she wasn't about to let it go. She'll try to find some way to get to me where I can't strike back. But I don't think she can do it. The next day, a man came to work and asked the secretary to call me. I walked to the front of the building, and Sally, the secretary, pointed to a man reading one of the many award plaques on the wall. I approached him and asked what I could do for him. "Roy Dalton? It's me." He handed me an envelope and said, "You have been served. Good luck." I opened the envelope and read the papers. They were pretty straightforward. It says almost exactly what Nancy says they would have said the night they ambushed me. She didn't even ask for alimony. I signed them, put them in a stamped envelope, and dropped them into the outgoing mail tray on Sally's desk. She asked, "Are you getting a divorce?" "Looks like it. Put my name on the list when you get ready to search again." "Are you serious?" "Absolutely." I wondered what other women saw in me that Nancy didn't. First Megan, then Melissa, and now Sally. Showing interest in me was a pretty good balm for my bruised ego. I called Megan and told her that I had been served and that as far as I was concerned, I was released from my vows. She would really like to invite me over the next evening for a celebration dinner, and I told her it was a date. I was sitting at home eating dinner, watching TV when Julie called. "You are an evil man, Roy Dalton." "Who am I?" "I spent the last half hour listening to my sister cry because of what you did to her jewelry. She asked John for the $10,000 she needed to redeem the pawn shop receipt, but he told her he didn't have it and wouldn't have it until the next quarterly bonus payment, which was more than 2 months away. She was in tears. She only had 50 days to redeem them, and she didn't know what she could do. I took pity on her and told her that I had them and that I would give them to her, but I would keep the necklacey. She grabbed onto it. So thanks to you, I have my necklace and my sister's eternal gratitude. Remember what I told you, Roy. Keep in touch, do you hear? Okay, sweetie. Whether I did it or not was largely up to Megan. Yes, we did have something going on at school, but was it just teenage awkwardness? When I arrived, she was wearing a very revealing dress and sexy high heels. The table was set, there were lighted candles, a bottle of wine, and 2 glasses on it. "Your timing is perfect," she said. "Dinner is ready, and if you pour some wine, I will bring it to the table." She served dinner, sat down, took her glass of wine, and said, "I propose a toast. To new beginnings." I raised my glass. Without a doubt. The dinner was great, and the only thing missing was the romantic music in the background. Megan gave no hint at all about how she expected the evening to be spent. "Dessert will be served in the bedroom," she said when we finished dinner. As we undressed, she said, "This is what I wanted all these years, before Dad was promoted. This was the first time I saw her naked." She was an extremely sexy woman. During that night, we tried different positions and reached the finish line several times. We fell asleep together, and from that night, we were practically a couple. I say mostly because there were things we couldn't do, because even though I felt like I was single since I was served, I was still technically married. Megan and I actually ran into Nancy a couple of times when we went out drinking, dancing, or just out for dinner. Nancy kept her distance, although her expression was slightly hostile. A week after my divorce was final, I knelt in front of Megan and asked her to marry me. I was in the basement working on a cradle I was building for the twins, who would be joining us in about 3 months when the basement door opened and my wife said to me, "He's here, honey." I put away my tools, vacuumed up the sawdust, washed my hands, and then headed upstairs to have dinner with my father-in-law. When I entered the living room, he was sitting on the sofa, and I saw that his wife had already brought him a drink. I joined him, and my sweetheart brought me a beer, sat on my lap and sipped her margarita while we talked, waiting for the turkey to ripen. The conversation was mostly about the upcoming arrival of twins, whether we had already chosen names and why we had been so stubborn in refusing to find out the gender of these two before they were born. And then, as it always, and I really mean always, happened, the elephant in the room was revealed. This time, it was my father-in-law who spoke about it. "Have you heard anything about your sister lately?" "No, and you?" "No, I'm just wondering what's going on." "I'm not going to find out anything. I'll talk to her if she calls, but I won't call her. All I know is what she told me the last time she called. She left him because of his constant cheating and is going to divorce him. Roy always maintained that one of them would cheat within a year of marriage. My father-in-law looked at me, and I just shrugged. I stroked her baby bump and said, "It doesn't matter to me because I won. I'm holding you." My father-in-law looked at me and shook his head. "I got more beer bought for me at the lodge because of you two. I'm probably the only father in the state who has a son-in-law who married both of my daughters. I don't understand, and it's probably better not to understand how you went from Nancy to Julie." "Julie?" "Oh, yes. I think I missed this part. When I proposed to Megan, she said no. It wasn't as straightforward, but it was still a no. She said she really likes me and likes what we do, but she doesn't like me. I was disappointed, but not too upset. In the end, I realized that I had done everything that depended on me with Megan. We had something going on at school, so it had to start from there. Right? But it hasn't started. And this is probably not accidental. Anyway, I got over it. For the next 2 months, maybe twice a week, I went to a bar like Buckskin's that had music you could dance to. One evening, I was at the Stagecoach Inn, and the band was Jimmy Little and the Animal Farm Band. I saw Julie Myers come in and take a seat at the bar. The dance ended, I returned to my table, and before I could sit down, Julie came up and asked if she could join me. I invited her to sit down. She sat down and asked why I didn't call. "Why did I need to call you? I thought I made it clear when I told you that I wanted to get to you before Nancy. I emphasized this when I asked you to keep in touch." "Yes, and if I did that and we got together, how would you be able to stay on decent terms with your sister?" "What about your father? Can you imagine how he greets me?" "I don't live my life to please Nancy or my father. Nancy had her chance and missed it, so she can't stop me from getting what she threw away. As for Dad, he can either be happy for me or end it. Now, to begin your courtship of me, I think you should ask me to dance." Nancy was unhappy, and Julie told her to fuck off. The surprise was her father. "I'm glad we can keep you in the family." That's what he said when Julia took me to his house for dinner one Sunday. 6 months after meeting at Stagecoach, I proposed. Julie said yes, and 3 months later we were married. 8 months after that, I was told I was going to be a dad, and 3 months later I found out I was going to be a dad to twins. Am I happy? Still would. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.